Now we're going to format spacing, our borders, and our cell shading. So in terms of spacing, I just want to look at the example, and this is a wider column row. Totals row is a little bit wider than the other ones. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And then we just make sure we have our columns word wrapped so everything looks good. So that looks fine. And now we want to look at our borders. So what we want to do here is insert a column, a row, above the first row so that we can see the borders. First thing we're going to do is do the outside border. And we can select the cells we want to put border around, go to our border drop down here, and what we're going to do is, since we don't want to do any of these pre-program borders, we're going to do our own borders. So we go here to more borders, and we're going to select the double border, and we're going to make it a dark blue, and then we select outline. So this little box shows that that's now going to put a double line blue border around the outline of our table. Okay, and now we can see we have our double blue border. Next thing is we want a thick single border at the bottom of this row. So we can click on our borders again, and this time it says, let's see if it says thick bottom border, which is what we want. We click there. Now we have a thick bottom border. However, we want a blue one. We don't want a black one. So let's go back here. So in that case, we have to go down to our borders pull down. This time we click on the thick border, and then we click on the bottom. Say OK. Now we have a blue border there. And then here, we also want a blue border, but not quite as thick. We can go here again, pull our borders down. This time we'll go with a little bit thinner border. Click there, say OK. Now we have a thinner border there. Now horizontal lines inside the table, so we can click here and then select and drag all the rows inside the table. Go to our border command, and we want to pick up the solid line this time. And we say we're going to do a solid line on the inside, and let's do a solid vertical line. So we can say OK. Now we have solid lines on the inside of our table. This one here, once again, we want to do a thick bottom line. So we go here. This time we pick up the medium thick, put it on the bottom, say OK. So we're in pretty good shape. However, we can see that while we have vertical lines, some of them need to be different thicknesses. So let's pick this here on column C. Between the row headers and the first line text, we want a thicker border. So this time we'll pick up our borders. We're going to pick up this size, put it on the left, and say OK. There we go. We have that border. Now, these next two columns, we want to have a dotted line. So all we need to do here is we can select one column here in the center, go here, once again, more borders. This time we pick up the dotted line and we put it on either, whoops, we don't want it on the diagonal. Put it on either side here. Say OK, and there we have dotted lines on either side of that column. Now, the next one we want a vertical line. We want a thinner, a normal weight vertical line on the left and a thick blue one on the right. So this way, what we can do here, go to more borders. Over this side, we want a thinner line. So we put that there. Then we pick up the thicker line and put it on this side. Let me see. Okay. Now we have the border. And then in column G, our hard cost, we want thick lines on either side. So we already have one on one side, so now we can just go pick up our border. We already have this one picked up. Go here. Say OK. Now between these, the next one between permits and overhead, we want a thin line. And then between that, the overhead and the total, we want a thicker line. So once again, we can select these columns, go to borders, and put the thicker one on that side and the thin one on that side. See, okay. There are our borders. So we're using the borders to help to define how the data is grouped. And we're also going to use some shading. So all we need to do here is pick these cells that we want shaded, which is through the contingency here. And we go up here to our little paintbrush or paint bucket, and we can pick a lighter blue. A little bit, this is good. Say OK, and we click off, we'll see that it's blue. The next three columns here in the data, we have them in gray. Go paint can, we want to pick a cooler gray because we're working with blue. There. And then the final one, total, we want to differentiate that, so we're going to make that a little bit darker. So we go up here, we can pull that down, and now we have dark blue. So there is our assignment. Now we can see that there are all these lines here which are kind of distracting. So they're useful when you're working with the file, but now that we're trying to present it, we turn off the grid lines. And so now those cells and those grid lines there, we just don't see them. And we are ready to proceed to printing our document.